How's it guys, this is Dayvy, FPL, and welcome back to the Fantasy Premier League video here on my channel. Now in this video, I'm going to be bringing you the updated free hit team. So I know what you're thinking, Dayvy, yesterday you uploaded your team selection with the squad, but we do have some game-changing news that I'll be covering in this video that's making us shift our attention to Son and Kane. So I wanted to give you guys an updated free hit draft. I have not activated the free hit yet, but the chances are that I will be activating it tonight due to price rises. So I wanted to get this team out for you guys before the deadline with Dayvy so that you can afford it if you have the same budget as me. So if that's something you're interested in, sit back, relax, and let's get straight into it. So the game-changing news that has taken place, not really game-changing in terms of the players that we have for Game Week 18, but the main fact is that Spurs versus Fulham has now been placed in Game Week 18. So if you do recall, Spurs were meant to face Aston Villa, but Villa had that outbreak of the virus at their training ground. So that game has been postponed. So only Spurs are changing their fixture. Instead of Villa, it's now Fulham, and that's why I spoke about not really a game-changer for our own squad, because I went from 4 players in blank Game Week 18 to 4 players in blank Game Week 18. So we do have Son and Kane in our current squads, but that didn't change anything. I also want to highlight that the fact that the Fulham vs Chelsea game was also moved from Friday to Saturday, that doesn't change much, but it was moved to the same slot that Everton vs Aston Villa was. But no, that game has not been postponed. Everton vs Villa will still take place, so don't worry about your Villa players yet. That game could obviously be postponed, but we can't really predict that now. But this news is actually quite massive, because if you watched the video yesterday, we're talking about maybe only having one of Son and Kane in case they do face Villa, but now they face Fulham, and I mean Fulham is a much better fixture than Aston Villa, so obviously our attention is now going to be turned to those Spurs assets, and that's exactly what this draft's going to be about. So we're going to be going through a draft that I have now changed to incorporate the Spurs assets that I probably will go for, because Spurs vs Fulham actually looks like one of the best fixtures in blank Game Week 18, so we do have to attack it. So this is the current draft that I have created. I'll be running through every position and talking about the changes that I have come up with. Had to make a couple of shifts around in terms of the defense to afford a Kane again, because obviously Kane is very expensive. So if we were able to downgrade him, the overall team actually does improve a little bit. So you could also go without Kane and Son. Maybe you think that Fulham have been a little bit better defensively recently. We'll be talking about those defensive stats a little bit later on. But right now with the draft, I've still kept De Gea and Foster here. Just De Gea is a nice cheap alternative. I really wanted to have Lloris, but unfortunately I was 0.1 priced out. How annoying is that? Whenever you have the perfect draft, you always are 0.1 million out, and unfortunately this is the case. But I still think that United fixture against Burnley is a really good fixture from a defensive point of view for United. Now Burnley's attacking stats haven't been great over the past couple of game weeks, so I am actually doubling up on that Man United defense. Lindelof was confirmed by Solskjaer to have returned to training. Bailly apparently was partaking part-time, so that kind of tells me that Bailly might not be that much of a risk this game week, maybe next game week, but for a free hit, we're only worrying about one game week at a time. So Lindelof comes in here after having returned to training, so that yellow flag will disappear soon, and he also is 4.8 million, so for a premium defense, that is quite cheap, and it's cheaper than other alternatives. I could have gone for Dyer as well, but similar situation with Lloris. I was 0.1 priced out, so that would kind of be the move that I would maybe go for. I think that Spurs asset from a defensive point of view against Fulham is still great, so if you can afford Dyer, then you can slot him in here. The next change that I've done is I've downgraded Diaz to Stones, because I needed that extra 0.8 million. So Stones is currently 5, Diaz is 5.8, and I do think that Stones and Diaz both will start. Not much between them. If you can recall in previous previews, we've spoken about Diaz. You're basically banking on their clean sheet. He hasn't got a goal or an assist in the Premier League at the moment. Touch wood there. If you do own him, probably hoping for that. But Cancelo, also from an attacking point of view, he's basically an attacker slash winger for Man City. He just gets forward loads. That double-digit haul is bound to happen soon. So I'm really happy that I managed to fit Cancelo in here, and I think the double Man City defense kind of is the strategy that I will go for, because I simply just can't afford another Man City attacker. If I could afford Sterling or maybe a Mahrez, I would definitely be looking at them, because I think from a differential aspect, the Man City attack has a much higher ceiling than that double up in defense. But so far, we're just going to stick with De Bruyne here. I think he's going to be a good shout for this game week. Hopefully going to be involved in loads of goals against Brighton, and that's going to do well for our FPL score. So the rest of the defense, we have Tierney here. I've already spoken about just how attacking is. changes. Arsenal's fixture against Crystal Palace, I do think Arsenal have been playing better recently, and he's an attacking fullback, so if they do lose that clean sheet, at least you do have some attacking returns to come. Then finally, I want to talk about Douglas, because a couple of people were asking me how to find Douglas. So unfortunately, you have to be on a desktop/PC version of Fantasy. You could also go on your phone, and I think just go to your browser, and that could happen. You just can't be on the app. So on the app, Douglas does not exist, but on the desktop/web version, he does. So that's how I've been able to afford him here at 3.8. I think he's the cheapest player in the game at the moment. So if you want to bring him in from a budget point of view, that's how you get him. The rest of the midfield is pretty template. We got Fernandes, Son, and Saka. So Son was in my previous draft because he was a little bit cheaper than Kane. So he's definitely going to stay here, considering that they've changed from Aston Villa to Fulham. And then Fernandes, I've spoken about him being one of the essential players for your game week. If you want to go mega differential, you could maybe bring in Rashford instead of Fernandes, but I wouldn't really recommend taking out the Portuguese midfielder because of the form that he's been in. Then I was really happy that I was able to afford Saka. If you need a cheap alternative, Smith Rowe is 4.4 if I do recall, so you could also opt for him, but I just think Saka is a more attacking player, and I'm just basically hoping that he starts. At 5.3 million, not too much of a risk there, and if he does manage to get a return, it's perfect value for money. Then finally, Berkey, we also spoke about him at 4.3 million, out of position midfielder, playing as a forward, and after that FA Cup goal, I do think he'll start against Newcastle, and he will probably be on the bench, but if he has to come on, I do think we might be able to get something out of him. And then finally, going to that forward line where a lot of my decisions actually took place. So we're going over a Lacazette versus Martial debate, but I've gone for Lacazette here. I'll explain why with my defensive stats. I just think at 8.3 million, I needed a player that was a little bit cheaper than Martial, and in the back of my mind, for some reason, I just have this Cavani threat in mind. Martial's been coming off at that 70/80 minute mark, usually for Cavani, and I just for some reason think against Burnley, Cavani might actually be a better option than Martial, because I think that Burnley will defend quite deep, and then Cavani can easily get a header versus Martial's pace. Then we got Brewster here at 4.5, also will be on my bench. Basically, between him and Berkey, one of them should start, so I'm kind of banking on one of them starting, and then maybe getting something if they have to come off the bench. And then finally, we've got Mr. Harry Kane. So he's the latest introduction into my latest free hit draft. I just think that Kane and Son are such a good duo. They're so clinical. I think that's a good matchup for that Spurs side, and they did look quite good against Leeds, so I'm hoping that they can replicate that form against Fulham. So now going on to the debate I spoke about with Lacazette versus Martial. So I really was considering Martial, but then I looked at the stats for Lacazette. So considering the Crystal Palace and the Burnley defenses, it's something that we'll be doing in the next talking point. But right off the stats here, we can see that Martial has become more of an assister actually. He's got some big chances created and some XA there. That might be that Man United are playing with a rotating forward, which could still lead to some points, but I always do prefer an out-and-out striker, which is Lacazette. So Lacazette has taken that place of Aubameyang. Now Aubameyang probably will play, but I can see him being shifted out wide, and with Lacazette just being a cheap alternative to Aubameyang, I still think that fixture is going to be quite good. So although Martial's had more shots in the box, Lacazette has had far more big chances, and that's what's kind of led me to the Arsenal man, because I think from an attacking point of view, the game against Crystal Palace might be a little bit better than a Burnley away fixture. So now I spoke about the defensive stats, and the teams you'll be looking at are going to be Fulham, Crystal Palace, and then also Burnley. So I spoke about Fulham, and I think it's going to be a good matchup for Spurs. So you might be looking at the graphic and thinking, what are you talking about? Fulham are currently the 4th best defense based on expected goals conceded in the Premier League at the moment, but I'll just take you to the games played there. You can see that they played 2 less games than most sides, which is why their stats could be a little bit better. I also wanted to point attention to Burnley and Crystal Palace, which is why I'm going for Lacazette. Now, Burnley have played 1 less game than Crystal Palace, so you might say that they should be actually performing well. And actually, Burnley look like they're overperforming their clean sheets. You can see their actual clean sheets, they're 3 versus the expected clean sheets, it's only 1, whereas Crystal Palace are actually underperforming their clean sheets. But what I kind of just wanted to show here is that Crystal Palace's defense is actually looking quite bad. You might have thought that was a given with how the results have been going recently for them, but I just wanted to prove here that Burnley and Crystal Palace, there might not be that much in it, but I think this is slightly pushing me towards Lacazette versus Martial. You can go for any team here if you want to look for some defensive stats. Hopefully this graphic, you can just pause it and you can analyze any team you want. This is based on the last 6 game weeks. That's why some teams have only played 4 fixtures, 5 fixtures, 6 fixtures. So just take this information and digest it at your pleasure. So finally, to talk about captaincy, because unfortunately I didn't cover that in yesterday's video, so I do apologize. For me, it's basically between two players. It's going to be Kevin De Bruyne and it's going to be Harry Kane / Son. So between Son and Kane, I don't think it's as cut as dry as the Leeds fixture. I favored Son there because I thought that Leeds would leave a massive amount of space in behind, and on the counter-attack, Son was a little bit more clinical than Kane. The points in that game was actually quite close, but I think against Fulham, I actually might consider Kane to be a better option. I just think with those penalty threats there, maybe that kind of tips it in Kane's favor, but I also think that Kevin De Bruyne is a great option and probably who I will be going for. So the one thing I'm thinking about is that I do have Kane and Son, so I might not want to put all my eggs in one basket, and I opt for a Man City attacker instead of the Spurs attackers, and hopefully they do well. I actually think that that Brighton fixture is a better attacking fixture than the Fulham one. I just think that Brighton play a little bit more expansive / attacking style than Fulham will, and that's why I think Kevin De Bruyne is going to be my captain going into blank game week 18. So this is going to wrap the video, guys. Hopefully you did enjoy it. Please don't forget to like it if you did, and subscribe if you're new or have not subscribed yet. Hopefully you guys aren't sick of my voice, and I'll see you in the Deadline with Dayvy live stream where I'll be confirming the final team. Also stay tuned to my Twitter where I'll updating if I do hit the free chip, which I probably will do tonight. I'm going to be signing off. This has been Dayvy FPL, and I'm out. Cheers, bye.